Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, the local minister at the Prince George's Church of Christ, located at 7800 Central Avenue in Landover, Maryland. Throughout the week, we're studying a series entitled Relationships, how to nurture a wholesome relationship. There are relationships of all types, but on yesterday, we introduced the concept of how to develop, how to nurture wholesome relationships. We also pointed out on yesterday that healthy relationships are bigger than a mere transaction. You recall in the book of Amos 3, verse 3, the question was raised, can two walk together except they be agreed? In the New Living Translation that reads, can two people walk together without agreeing on the direction in which they are headed? That doesn't mean north, south, east, or west, but it means the objectives. According to Psychology Today, the following are necessary for healthy relationships. We pointed this up yesterday. Number one, maintaining a strong relationship requires constant care and communication. Secondly, each individual must feel confident that the other individual or individuals in the relationship will devote proper time and proper attention to each other in the relationship. Thirdly, each individual must be committed to accommodating differences that without doubt will change over time. It should not be, it is always exactly the way I say it, because sometimes the way that I say or the things that I see may be based on some of my historical biases instead of the right or the wrong of the matter. And then number four, we pointed up yesterday that each individual must have a strong sense of gratitude for each other. Today, we'll talk about that in terms of contempt. Whenever there's contempt or a lack of respect in a relationship, that relationship is headed to nowhere. And then finally, on yesterday, we pointed up each individual must be capable of providing and receiving affection that is emotionally nurturing, physically appropriate, and spiritually uplifted. See, relationships that are healthy are not just taking relationships. What can I get out of the relationship? But a healthy relationship also necessitates that an individual be capable of giving in the relationship as well. So today we're going to talk about why do relationships fail? And there are some clear-cut reasons. Not one of these becomes this is it, but there is a plethora of reasons why relationships fail. Relationships, keep in mind, first and foremost, are comprised of imperfect people. There's not a perfect, righteous, sinless person walking the face of this earth. No, not one. And because of that, all human relationships are comprised of imperfect people. So when we're dealing with people that have imperfections, some more than others, it can actually cause conflict and conflict escalation and conflict that will cause the relationship to basically deteriorate. Relationships are the true manifestation of walking by faith. Excuse me. So when we talk about healthy relationships, we must understand that relationships are walks of faith because we're dealing with imperfect people. And we do our homework as best we can, But at the same time in that journey, there may be a situation where I've just got to go with it, and I just pray for the best. And I pray that I've done all of the necessary backroom things that I know to do to ensure as best as I know how that the relationship will be okay. But just keep in mind, first and foremost, that relationships are a walk of faith. Secondly, uh, it is not uncommon for the major attributes of what initially appeared as strengths or weaknesses ultimately becomes the very thing that begins driving a wedge into the relationship. So when you ask, so how did we get on the wrong track? Well, it possibly could be that you were on the wrong track to start with, because the things that you saw as strengths in the person were really things that you didn't like, but they were things that you were drawn to. You know, she really speaks up for herself. He really got them told, I like a man that's going to stand up for me. And the next thing you know, that same man who's always standing up, always confronting people, you get married to them or you're in a relationship with them, and they're always standing up and they're always confronting you. But it was already in play when you were getting to know the person. The weaknesses, I really like a gentle spirited guy. I like a quiet man. I like a quiet woman. I like a person who says to me, well, just whatever you like to do, I'm okay with it. And then you get married or you get into a serious relationship and you say, that person is the most indecisive person I ever met in my life. I have to make all of the decisions. If I don't make the decisions, if I don't initiate this, I'm tired of this. Well, but in the initial stages of the relationship, you were saying, he has such a quiet spirit. She has such a quiet spirit. He just says to me, well, baby, just whatever you want to do. I, and later it will get on your nerves because you're saying, not only is it whatever I want to do, I've got to do everything. For some, infidelity is the deal breaker. It's the straw that breaks the relationship apart. We're just simply talking about why relationships fail. Infidelity can be the straw that breaks the relationship apart. People can put up with a lot of chaos, but one of the things that many people will say is, the first time you cheat on me, the first time you step out of the marriage bond on me is the last time you'll do it. But that's one of the reasons why relationships fail. And I'll show you some more specific ones shortly. For some, a relationship can be ended and there is never a glance of looking back emotionally, regardless of the reason, which may range from, you embarrassed me in front of my parents, my coworkers, my friends, I'm out of here. Or it may be, you no longer can support my lifestyle. We can't travel the way we used to. Or it may be, you weren't following God when I first met you. When we first met, we were both out in the world kicking it together. And now you've got religion and we're no longer compatible. And that can cause a relationship to fail. But we must be aware of the fact, again, that there is a multiplicity of reasons why relationships deteriorate. Let me give you 7 more specific reasons why relationships fail. And I pulled this from an article in a July 12th, 2015 Psychology Today article. And these are just excerpts from it because there were like 10 or 12 reasons, but I thought I'd just whet your appetite with these. trust, the lack or the loss of trust. Without trust, the relationship misses the anchoring bond for safety and security. Trust is the foundational building block of that relationship. And when trust is no longer in the relationship, it is a house on sinking sand. Different expectations. Mark Twain once said, never allow someone to be your priority while allowing yourself to be their option. Are you seen as Mr. or Miss Right? Or are you seen as Mr. or Mrs. Right for right now? In other words, the only reason I'm in a relationship with you, or the only reason I'm seeking a relationship with you, is because I'm seeking a relationship somewhere else, and I just haven't found it yet. And I've got time on my hands, but I don't want to just be by myself during this time that I'm really looking for Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. Keep in mind what Mark Twain said. Never allow someone to be your priority while allowing yourself to be their option. That becomes a very, very hurtful situation, and it's bound to break you apart emotionally. Another reason why relationships fail is because of different priorities. Is family ranked first, second, or where? Is God ranked first, second, or where in the relationship? Are you ranked first, second, or where? People have different priorities. And normally, as the relationship is coming together, those priorities become quite clear. Another reason relationships fail is because of compatibility issues. Some people, in terms of their personalities, they just butt heads and butt heads. Some people have struggles with attachment. I like the idea of being in a relationship, but I do not, here's the term I hear people use a lot, but I do not want people in my business. Well, one of the things about relationships is people are all up in your business and you're all up in their business. That's just the way relationships are. So when people say, yeah, I want a relationship, but I don't want you in my business, what they're telling you without telling you is they're really not really too excited about being in a healthy relationship. Intimacy, and I'm not talking about sex intimacy. I'm talking about just a natural bonding of emotions, a connection that says, I'm with you, you're with me. It's kind of like the David and Jonathan relationship. They become kinsmen, bond people. But relationships can be destroyed because of intimacy. There are people that do not feel comfortable being in an intimate, close relationship. So it becomes a compatibility issue. If you are a person who's looking for closeness and the other person struggles with closeness, do you kind of see what road that is headed down? Finances. There are people who are just incompatible when it comes to finances. Some people are like Ebenezer Scrooge. They don't want to spend a dime. They will live as a miser all their lives, and they may have a gold mine. There are other people who have no gold mine, and they want to live a life of luxury like they do have a gold mine. And they're always in unnecessary debt, in bankruptcy, things are repossessed. There are people that are actually incompatible religiously. And that's something that people must understand. Those are specific reasons why relationships fall apart. Communication style is another one. The Gottman Institute has found that when an individual in a relationship have contempt, which is the opposite of respect for the other, it destroys the health and the well-being of the relationship. In other words, you know what? You just make me sick. And because you make me sick, I'm not paying attention to any of your expectations. I don't care what the boundaries are. I don't care if they make sense. I don't care if they're reasonable. I'm not going to abide by that. Gottman and the Gottman Institute says, whenever a relationship or a person in a relationship becomes contemptuous toward the other, that relationship in all likelihood is going to fall apart. When we look at mental health issues, and this is something in some communities we don't want to talk about, but it's a reality. Mental health issues is a major reason of the failure of relationships. The Mayo Clinic has found that specific mental health issues that causes an inflated sense of one's own importance and a deep need for admiration correlated with a high level of susceptibility to infidelity. Here's why. Getting the affirmation and the approval of one person when there's some serious mental health issues, that's not enough. People who have certain mental health issues like narcissistic personality disorder, or some people who are bipolar, or some people who have borderline personality disorder, those individuals are attention seekers. And the more attention they can have around them, whether it is appropriate or inappropriate, they may cross boundaries to get it. It was also found through the Mayo Clinic that individuals with specific mental health issues have a higher contempt rate toward others. In other words, I want you to love me, I want you to respect me, but I could care less about what you expect of me. And when that thing is moving down opposite streets, remember Amos 3:3 said, can two walk together except they are on the same page? Money is another big issue, and it's the last one that we'll talk about today. Money is often an inroad into a deeper embedded psychological need, and it points up the fears of an individual, inclusive of trust, safety, security, power, control, and even survival. So when you hear people always fussing and complaining and nitpicking about money, the money is really not the issue. The money is an indicator that there is something bigger going on inside that person. That there are some psychological fears inside that person. They may have grown up struggling. They may have grown up without. They may have grown up wondering if the lights were going to be on, if there's going to be food on the table. They may have grown up always hearing negative things, and therefore money became a major issue. But they're seeing money as linked to trust, safety. If I've got money, I'm okay. If I've got money, I've got security. If I've got money, I've got power. I've got control, and I can make it with or without you as long as I've got money. Well, that outlook on money can destroy a relationship. These are all excerpts, as I mentioned earlier, from a July 12, 2015 article in Psychology Today. Relationship building has a specific sequence. And whenever this sequencing is not in play, that relationship is in jeopardy. The book of Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 through 32, get rid of all bitterness. That's a command. Why does Paul give that command? Because he understood if these things exist in the relationship, it's going to destroy the relationship. Get rid of it. Bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, slander, as well as all types of evil behaviors. Here's my only caveat to that. Most of these things are already in play before people venture into adult relationships. Where did they come from? They came from the home of your upbringing. Most of the time, you don't know people long enough to be so bitter against them, to be so much enraged against them. Many times, this bitterness, this rage, this anger, this harshness, this contemptuous behavior is already inside of an individual. And they're not being very honest about what's going on inside of them as they are seeking a relationship, or it could be buried inside, suppressed in such a way that once they honestly endeavor to go into a wholesome relationship, when they begin to see the imperfections in the other person, and remember I said none of us are perfect, but when they begin to see the imperfections in other persons, it can push that button, it can trip that alarm, it can sound that alert that the things that are already going on inside of you, this person is replicating them. Paul says in verse 32, instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. Here's the argument. Here's the hard part. It is almost impossible to do verse 32 until you accomplish verse 31. Come back on on Thursday, and we will do part 3 of this series, Healing the Relationship Fractures. So now what do you do? How do you fix this? We're going to talk in our 3rd part about how to heal these relationship fractures. I'll see you back in class again Thursday. Don't be late and don't skip class.